to have two different parts of the class. The first one is I'm going to talk about startup metrics. And this is it really builds on what you heard Ash talk about last week. So Ash was here last week doing his lean talk. And but it's going to be very practical. And we have a bunch of real examples of the metrics and the dashboards that I use to run my companies. And this is like startup crack. I am totally addicted to this. Any startup that we work with or do, I immediately want to have this dashboard and this view. And it's not something we wait to like get once it's up and running. It's like one of the first things that we do. And any company that I work with, the first thing I do is ask them to make one of these things so that they can see what's going on in the business and so I can see. And I ran my first company for like 10 years and didn't have this kind of thing. I look back and I can't believe that I ran this company every day and really had no idea what was actually happening. So it's a really interesting topic. I think we got some real, it's also, we're going to have like real examples which are always good to look at. I'm going to show you the back of my tweets, which is one business that we started, other inbox, and then Jason Cohen, another one of our guests, is going to show his slides for WP Engine, another business. And then the second part of it, Jason's going to give a talk on honesty in business. And Jason, well, I'll introduce a little bit more later, but he's an internationally renowned speaker. He gets flown around the world to give talks. He speaks at South by Southwest and places like that too. He's got a blog at asmartbear.com, which is very, very popular. It has tens of thousands of readers. He gets voted up on Hacker News all the time. And we're really lucky to have him here today. And I'm really lucky. I work with him on a lot of projects. He helps me run Capital Factory, and we're basically like married as far as business goes. We do a lot of projects together. So that's for today. And we usually think we're going to have time at the end for you guys to meet. We usually don't. So I'm not going to make any promises right now. But if we do, you guys know some time to get together. So we talked about lean last time. And I think you can't be lean without metrics. That's a big part of it for me. You can take different takeaways out of the lean stuff, but for me, a big part of it is measuring the things that you do so that you can learn from them and maximizing what you can learn. And you can't learn if you're not measuring and watching. There's another saying, an old business saying that says, if you want something to improve, just measure it. And it's a human nature type thing that if you're paying attention to something without even doing anything else consciously or intentionally, often just measuring it will make it get better. That if you're paying attention to it and you're watching it all the time, even without intending to, you're going to do things that make that number go in the right direction, that make it better. And obviously, you want to try to do things that you intend to. So metrics are a really key part of all this. And like I said, it's the core part for me of any business that I run. It's the first thing that I look at every morning. I've got a set of bookmarks. I use Safari on the Mac, and you can create a bookmark folder and then put it in your menu bar. And when you click it, it opens all the windows at once from that folder. So I have like 15 or 20 links in this page. And every morning I get up, I open it, and I click that one link. And it opens up 15 tabs in this one window. And then it's all the things I need to look at every day. And then all I do is close windows. So there's one in front of me, and I look at it, and I close it. And then there's another one right there, and I look at that, and I close it. And I get through those 15 things. And those are all the things I need to look at every day. I've tried to make one I'm supposed to look at like once a week. I've really gotten that to work right. But the daily one works pretty well. And this goes on that daily thing, right? So for Other Inbox, one of the first things I do every morning is I go look, and I look at our dashboards to see what's been going on. And that helps me know if there's a problem. It helps me know where we're headed as a company. It means that I know what the patterns, I know what it's supposed to look like. And so I have a sense of like, hey, that doesn't look right. What's that mean? I have to go look into that. Why is that thing there? And it causes you to ask good questions about your business and go look at it. And then at another level, we have a lot of different dashboards that we use, different things we chart, and different metrics we watch. But there's a core dashboard that's the one that I look at every morning, and that's the one that really represents the whole business. And for everybody that works in the company, I try to do, I think we could do a better job of, but is we really try to make sure that they know which line they're trying to move, because that's supposed to be all the really important stuff in the company. So if you're in the company, you should be working on something important. You should be trying to move one of those numbers. You should be trying to make one of those charts go up more or go down more or something like that. And everyone in the company should know how what they're doing is going to impact these key metrics that run the business. So I sent out a link to the Pirate metrics. How many people had a chance to look through that? So Dave McClure who's an investor in Other Inbox, in my company, and runs 500 startups, which is a really interesting early stage company, venture investing firm in Silicon Valley. He came up with this theory. He was an early guy at PayPal, and he's part of the PayPal Mafia. You've ever heard of the PayPal Mafia? But it's a bunch of ex-PayPal people that all have gone on to start made a lot of money and have gone on to start a lot of other companies. He was also really an early investor in Mint.com. Was helpful with that company. And through that, this is some of the lessons that he brought away. And he calls them pirate metrics because the acronym is AARRR, which is R, like pirate. And what that stands for is acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue. You can put those in kind of different orders. And it's really kind of like no matter what business you're doing, those are the things that matter. Just about any business. Maybe one of them is less important than for you, but generally all those things are going to be important. You're going to be able to, at a high level, roll up what's happening in your business into those different things. And so acquisition is your funnel of customers. How do you acquire customers? How do they find out about you? How do they come in? For a lot of you, that might be Google Analytics, your website traffic, right? It's like, how many people came to our website yesterday? Well, that's the funnel of a whole bunch of other things for many businesses. And so if that number drops really fast, you want to know that. If it goes up really fast, you want to know that. And you'd expect those things to trickle down through the rest of the funnel. Activation is once you've kind of got their attention, can you turn them into a customer? And so it's usually kind of like, and I also often refer to this as like the first 15 minutes, like the first 15-minute experience of your customers. Like, how do you get them to be a customer, to really do something, to convert, and to be active, to be really using your product, so that they're gonna have a good experience. That's something you want to be watching really closely and optimizing. Getting lots of people in the funnel and then getting them activated, getting them to really use it. If you're building a game, it might be one might be signing up for the game, and another one might be did they play all the way to the end? That might be activated, or a certain number of accomplishments doing it. If you're building and we'll talk about, we're going to give a bunch of examples of ours here. Retention is can mean slightly different things for different businesses, but for me, it's usually like, are we losing people? So one thing I put on retention is like deactivations. Any people turning it off or becoming inactive. With Other Inbox, they can actually turn it off because it's doing something all the time. With other products, sometimes the way they go inactive is they just don't come back. And so you might have some measure that says, if they haven't done something in the past 30 days, they are now inactive. And you might be measuring how many people cross that threshold or trip that. And then other things around retention might be things that cause them to use it more, which sometimes I get confused. I can blur into activation a little bit too. This isn't all, it doesn't have to be exact. And then referral is the things that your customers do that are going to cause them to bring in other customers. That's not an important part of every business, but for a lot of yours it probably will be, and it's something that you can track and you can affect. And so that's really great. That's free marketing, and those are things that's going to feed back into your customer, your acquisition. And then finally, revenue, which is how much money you're making. So that's obviously something you all want to be watching, and it's a good thing. So that's what I was talking about. There's Dave. Facebook journal. So first example I'm going to give is backup. He's also into t-shirts. Is backup my tweets. So backup my tweets is what Jason and I think of as kind of like our science project company. We started it probably 3 or 4 years ago, and the basic idea is around backing up things that are in the cloud somewhere else in the cloud. So there's lots of things on your computer to back up your computer to the cloud, Dropbox and Jungle Disk and things like that. But more and more, you have data that actually lives in the cloud that's not on your computer. There's just going to be more of that. And a lot of that's really important. And you're trusting that one company not to lose it. So our big theory is that over time, there's just going to be more and more of that. It's going to get more and more important. And you don't actually want to download it to your computer because that doesn't really do you any good. You just want it to know it's somewhere else in the cloud so that if they screwed it up, you can go get it. And so we started out with the thing that I thought was really important, which is email. And it turns out, actually, nobody wants to back up their email. I would think they would. Email's really important. You got it all. People lose their email. They lose access to their email. But no, that's actually a pretty hard sell. And then almost as a joke, because we couldn't really get that to work, we built Backup My Tweets, thinking we'll let people back up Twitter, and like, haha, won't that be funny? Maybe we'll get some press. It'll get more people to sign up for Backup My Mail. But it turns out people actually do want to back up their tweets. There's a bunch of reasons. There's actually a really specific reason, and that is if you send a tweet and you go to look, and like a few days later, you send out a link maybe, and you sent out a link to some video you watched that was really funny, and then a week later you're like, man, what was that link I sent out last week? I know I sent it. I want to go find it again, but you didn't write it down. You just know you tweeted it. You actually can't find that tweet. Like you go to Twitter search, it's not there. That only goes back a few days. And maybe you could go to your profile and page through it, like hit more and more and more and more to get to the end, but that's not really that easy, and some people don't know how to do that. And then if you tweet a lot, like I tweet a lot, then you get a lot of tweets, and actually Twitter only lets you get the most recent 3,200 of them. It may sound like really a lot. Once you cross that number, you kind of like, you can't get the old ones, they're gone. So those are reasons why people would want to back up their tweets, and actually do, and they run into this problem a lot of times, and they complain about it. And so we built this little site, and you go, and it's free, but it's free if you tweet about it. So it says like, you have to send out a tweet that says, I'm backing up my tweets, and then it goes and backs up your tweets. Or you can pay $12 a year, which a few people a month do. And that always amazes me too, that people pay instead of tweeting about it. But I started this whole thing with just sending out a few tweets and myself, and it just grew on its own, and it's growing virally, and every day about 100 people sign up and tweet about it, and that causes 100 more people to sign up tomorrow. And we haven't spent any money on it or do anything like that. And we've had more than 20,000 people sign up. So we have 20,000 followers on this Twitter account. It is creating value, and it's creating this audience. And now we're trying to turn the levers on getting people to pay for parts of it. So anyways, I'm just giving you a little background of what it is you're about to look at. So let's back up my tweets. And so what are the things we look at for back up my tweets? So every week we have a meeting about this. We have a bunch of people working on it part-time. And every week we have a meeting about it where we go over what's driving the business. And the first part of the acquisition funnel. Actually, I realized I kind of changed my definition, because I used to start acquisition with signups, but it's really more your traffic. It's really actually more activation. But this is our sign-up graph around activation. And there's 6 lines here, but there's really 3 that are important. This line is like an average line of this other blue one. This green one that's straight is an average line of this other green one. And this purple one is an average line of that red one. So you want to focus more on the ones that are spiked for those 3. And it's 3 different steps in our conversion funnel that we're tracking. And so the red line is how many people came to the website and clicked, I want to back up my tweets. Like the first step of activating or becoming a customer. The green line, after it does that, it says like OAuth to Twitter. You have to put in your username and password for Twitter. And as you can see here, and I can show you on other inboxes and other places, pretty common what I've found is you lose half the people right there. Anytime you ask somebody to OAuth, to put in a username and password for Twitter, for Facebook, for Gmail, about half of them look at that and get freaked out and stop. That's just the way it works. So about half of them, that number, are doing this. So you can see this number trails that one, right? Because it's the same funnel of things. And then after they OAuth and we've got them as a customer, that's what we really consider we've got them as a customer. Then when we're done, we send them a direct message that says, your backup's ready. Come complete your account and download it. And we still kind of got them here, but if they come back, it asks them to put in their email address too. And then we've got, not only do we have their account and their OAuth, but we've got their email address, so we've got more of a stronger customer relationship, and we can communicate with them more. So we're trying to get them all the way down here. But even right up here, they've followed us on Twitter. Actually, right here, they followed us on Twitter, and we're backing them up, and we can direct message them for other things. So that's kind of our conversion funnel, and we watch that. And one thing you'll notice right here is, so you see dip, 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 dip. Anyone want to guess what those are? Weekends. Right? So things start to make sense after a while. You're like, oh, we do less on the weekends. More people sign up during the week. Okay, not a big surprise. But then when you see a dip and it's not the weekend, you know something looks wrong. And then sometimes there are bigger spikes, right? We'll get into it a little bit later. We can show why we see some of those bigger spikes. And then also you might see something where suddenly, like, what if this blue line didn't go up without the green line? What if it took a different angle? We expect all these things to go together, right? So if one of these lines diverges, then we know something's wrong. And it's going to stick out. And we know kind of where the problem is, too, right? We know like where it's happening, where it's breaking. We know what to go look at. So it's really, really helpful. Next thing we look at, this part of signups, is first-time backups. This is also kind of activation. And for us, what this is doing is this is the people signing up, and this is the queue of how many people haven't been backed up once. So it's kind of like telling us like we're getting a little bit, like a lot of people backed up here and we got a little bit behind, but we caught back up. And then this blue line that goes up and down is the direct message queue that we're sending, which is part of the causing them to get back up the first time. And we don't send direct messages in the middle of the night US time. We need to get smarter about doing it internationally, but because people were hitting like when we direct message them in the middle of the night that they're back up this time. And so what this is this is them piling up overnight and then sends them all in the morning. When they pile up overnight, it sends them all in the morning, right? But if they start piling up too high, again, we know there's some kind of problem. So then, next thing we look at is backup health. I kind of throw this in retentions. This is a current chart, and we're having problems right now. So normally what I want to see is this should just be a flat line along the bottom with no red line and no blue line. But what this is this is the number of accounts, the red line is the number of accounts that have not been backed up in the past 8 hours. So our goal is to back up everyone at least once a day. It doesn't really need to be real time. And what it's saying is we're never getting everybody all the way backed up, at least over 8 hours. So we're constantly backed up right now, and it's getting worse. So the system's not scaling. There's something wrong. And then the blue line is not backed up in, I believe, 24 hours. So when we're seeing this, it's like we're really backed up. That means somebody's logging in and they're not seeing their tweets from a day ago, right? You can see it's kind of also gotten worse and worse. And there's a third line which you can't see, which I hope you never see, which is 3 days. So if we're really backed up, it's like these accounts haven't been backed up in 3 days. That starts to get to the point where, actually not at 3 days, but there's some point at which like you get worried, like we're not going to be able to go back and get all of them, right? So we're really worried. And so we watch this really closely, and this has been an ongoing problem. And so, but it tells us kind of the severity of the problem by these milestones we've set of 8 hours, 24 hours, 3 days, and lets me watch for certain things. And I can see that it's also that it's getting worse, right? As it follows this one.
Can you figure out what the two big spikes are from?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I think it would correlate with high sign-ups.
Yeah, I was going to say, the first thing I would look to is, did we get a lot of signups there? And all these charts are on the same scale, and that's another really important part with this. When you do charts like this, you want to have, like, all of my charts look at 30 days. That's enough to show me some real trend, and then when I compare them, I can look at like, the same point on that other chart and be like, where was that? And then also, all of these charts on the scale here, it's pretty much always past 24 hours. So whenever I'm looking at a number, it's what happened in 24 hours. And again, you can start to compare these different parts. And also, then you can start to, like this, these are all generated out of the graphing tool we have called Graphite. And so these are the pre-canned reports we've made, but you can also then go in and like create a custom report where I want to see that line and this line on the same graph so I can see exactly how they're correlated and what might be happening. But yeah, in these cases, I think it was around some pretty high signups. And then one of the charts I'll show you later, when you get to referral, we're tracking when people tweet about it, how many people see that. And you'll see that really drives the signups is, oh, somebody tweeted about it and they had 200,000 followers, and boom, a whole bunch more people signed up. So this is another one we track. This is a little bit of an internal metric. It's not necessarily part of the pirate part, but worker productivity. So we've got each color line is a different backup like worker, like kind of like compute server. And as part of tracking that health thing, this is tracking like how many backups they're running like per hour or something, like how many tweets they're backing up. And what this confirms is the problem that we're getting less and less productive. Right, like each individual, like the whole system's slowing down, and it's not that like one of them is slowing down. It's not like we could see here if like one server was being really slow and slowing everything down. Like that, no, like they're all getting slower and slower. And then here are times where we rebooted them all. I was like trying to see if that would fix it. It's kind of like restart everything, see if that makes it go faster. No, it didn't work. But really helpful in letting us, as we're trying to diagnose this problem, these are the kind of charts we're producing to see what's really happening with the system and what we can fix. And when we make some other changes, what we want to see is this productivity go up and then hopefully see the backups queue go down. So this is really interesting. This is retweet views. So this is in the referral section, but also drives back into acquisition. And so what this is showing is we look for everybody that tweets about us using a Twitter search to find it. And then we look how many followers they had. And so this is how many people saw a tweet about back on my tweets that day, which is going to correlate directly a lot to the signups, right? And so boom, somebody with like 500,000 followers tweeted about it, right? Like they went online and they signed up and they said, I'm backing up my tweets, and went up to like 500,000 people. And if we go back, and normally I would actually lay these on top of each other. So I'm guessing there's a sign-up spike around then. And it doesn't actually look that. I don't see that much, but you see some of these spikes there. And there are a couple others there where you'll see somebody. Well, right around this time, you saw those being big there, and there's some really big tweets to hundreds of thousands of people, which is unusual for us. Like usually it's hanging out down here. Now, another interesting thing we've learned from that is actually that while you think, like, wow, someone just tweeted to 500,000 people, it actually doesn't make that big of a difference. Like the people that were going to sign up, and they're hearing about it, like it blasts out to that many people, and it doesn't actually usually cause a huge spike. We'll notice it, but not super huge. But this is a really interesting kind of on the referral side, being able to measure what that is. And then we also track retweet clicks. So the scale on this just got a lot smaller, but it's going to correspond. You're going to see a lot of the same bumps. And these are people that are clicking on the links in the tweets that we send out saying you should go sign up. So that's on the referral side. And then on revenue, like I said, we only sell a few things a month. But occasionally, when you go to sign up, you can say, I'm going to pay $12 instead of tweeting about it. And also, when you go to download your tweets, like you can search them on our site, you go to things, and you can download them. But when you download them, if you're not a paid user, if you haven't paid, it will say either tweet about it again or pay $12. And you don't have to do that like once a year or something. It's not like you have to tweet every time you download it. And so that will cause people to pay. And so some number of people go, I don't want to tweet about it, I'm going to pay. And so every one just means one, this is one person. On that day. And so this is like per day how many people paid, because they're looking at 24-hour windows, right? So that's why it ends up being a block like this. Yeah. And so this is one person paid $12. And then this is like kind of two people paid $12, or like maybe like 3 people paid over 2 days or something. That was like we created that kind of funny design. And then 2 people paid 1 day on the next day. And that's about what we expect to see right now is a few of these a week. And we're just starting to introduce some features that are supposed to get more people to pay, right? And so we're watching this chart and looking back and going like, okay, how many did we get this week? How many did we get last week? Is that trend going up? We're seeing more. It looks like we're getting more here, but we didn't actually do anything. So that's just luck. So that's back at my tweets. We're going to go through 2 more examples of just other companies looking through their real charts. But any questions about that one?
So how do you keep track of all the queues and all, like you said, all the direct messages line up in a queue? So like, are you using like your own software, or is there like a free service?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we use a tool. There are a couple different tools you can use, and there's some startups focused on this. There's a startup, I don't even know if they're still in business actually, but there was a startup called Metrically, and there was another one, maybe Gecko Board.
There's a lot now.
There's a bunch of them trying to do like dashboardy things, and a lot of them give you like hooks into like making it easy to put your Google Analytics in or things, or pull in some, like how many tweets, how many followers we have, watch our follower count going up and down. But honestly, I find most of the things they make it easy to chart aren't the important things. And most of the important things you really want to see are like actually very specific numbers about your business that you have to code a little bit. And so we have been using for a long time, and I'm really happy with this tool called Graphite, Graphite. It was developed by the website Orbitz, the travel website, and it's what they use to monitor their business. It's an open source product it hasn't been updated in years, but it's fine. Like it works great. So it's not like it's broken. It's not being updated. It works. It's written in Python, but you don't really have to know Python to run it. You can just set it up as a server and run it, and that's what we don't. We don't run any other Python, but that's what we use. And so we have a server running. It's our Graphite server, and we actually use it for a few different companies because once you have one, you can do that. And I know some people that track all this stuff in their own app, in their own database. Like they'll have a table with fields and they're adding counters and stuff. And the reason I really like Graphite, we've backed away from doing that, is that I found it's kind of like the theory of relativity that like the closer you try to measure something, the less you can you can either know where it is or how fast it's going, but you can't both know both at the same time because you measuring it affects it. Well, it's kind of like that with this, that you measuring all this stuff slows down your site like considerably a lot of times. half the time the problem you're having is all the logging that you're doing. And it's like slowing, or running reports where there's some business person just sitting there hitting refresh on a page over and over again, and it's like slowing down your whole system because of calculating all this stuff to produce these reports. And so the first thing Graphite does is just gets it off somewhere else so that, worst case, the Graphite server gets slow, which doesn't actually usually end up happening because it's designed to do this, but it's never slowing down your main application. Your app's just pushing data over to it in an asynchronous way, and it's just going over and it just collects it all, and then somebody can sit there and hit refresh over and over again. It's not slowing down your main app or affecting it. So that's one reason I really like it. It's also designed to do this. It's designed to take these kind of small data points fast and store them efficiently. It also has some cool functionality for like rolling things up over time. So say you're measuring something every minute because you want to see it moving by the minute. Well, but you don't, and you want to keep historical logs of what it really did, but you don't actually want to keep every minute of it for the past 3 years because that would start to get inefficient and slow to report on and things. So it'll do things like automatically, roll it up by day after a month. So it is keeping the totals, and you get some charts, but you don't have it by minute or things like that. And then finally, it gives you this great web interface where there's like a little charting tool, and you have a list of all your data points and a little graph, and you drag data points onto it, and you're like, okay, I want to see new signups per day charted against deactivations and tweets. And you see, then you'll get the 3 lines, and you can change what time period and what colors and all these things about it, and create the report that you want really easily without knowing how to program anything. And then once you like that, it's actually just a GIF or an image, so you can like right-click and save the URL to that image and go put it somewhere else, and it'll real-time. And so from our dashboards, we usually use Google Sites, which are basically just like a simple website builder where I can build simple web pages without any programming, and we embed these charts on them. So we'll make a page and put 5 charts on it, and that's our dashboard. And the charts are coming out of Graphite, and it's every time you reload the page, the image updates like what you're seeing up there. Other questions?
Does that tool actually know how to count tweets and things like that? Or are you
No, it just knows data points. And so then you write little connectors that push data to it.
I see, okay.
And so we have things in our app, like a lot of them are something that will maybe run once an hour or once every few minutes, and it's like on a cron job, and it runs a query on the database to count something, and then pushes that count. It's like counting how many things are in the queue, how backed up are we, right? That back up my tweets when seeing how far behind. It's like a search that's a SQL query for, search for accounts where last backup date is greater than 8 hours, and it gives you a number, and we just push that number to Graphite every 5 minutes, right? And that way we're able to chart that and see it. And you have to determine what those things are. A lot of times we pull in Google Analytics data, so that's pretty standardized. We've got a little, code we wrote for pushing Google Analytics data over, and we can use that over and over again. Twitter stuff is probably pretty usable for different things. But a lot of times, you're just running a query on your database and pulling out some interesting number and pushing that over. Anybody else? Okay, we're into two more quick examples, then we'll jump into Jason. So Other Inbox. I think I've told you guys what Other Inbox does, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail there. But we've got users coming, signing up. They OAuth into their email account. Then we go scan their email account, look for stuff. We send them an email every day that's their daily digest. And they can interact with it a little bit by manually putting messages into folders or changing their settings or things like that. So here's one of our acquisition charts. And this is more properly labeled acquisition because this is a funnel. This is the red line is Google Analytics coming in from Google Analytics. And that's, you'll even notice some of the granularity here. These lines are very blocky. They're pretty much only moved per day. That's because Google Analytics is only per day. I don't know if you guys know that, but you try to pull Google Analytics data, you can only get it basically on a daily basis. You can't get per minute stuff. So you'll notice this is all per day. This number we can get per minute, so it's a lot more fine-grained as it's moving. And so this is how many people came to the website. This is how many people clicked to OAuth, very similar to the back of my tweets one. And then this is how many people actually made it. So you see that kind of conversion funnel, and you expect those things to stay and move together, and when they don't, that's part of what tells you something's changing. Now, if you're watching something really closely, like a conversion rate, you can make another chart that's actually, and you can do this really easily with Graphite. You can divide this number by this number, and then chart that. And then then you might be looking at a different number. You're expecting to do something different. You just want that number to stay the same, either not move or you want it to go up. You're users, and you're actually getting a rate that you're watching, like our conversion rate. And okay, it's staying the same, which is good, or our conversion rate is getting better. Now, this is Gmail signups. We don't get a lot of Gmail signups, 50 to 100 a day, because we have a much better deal with Yahoo. They give us much better advertising and promotion. And so another thing that's really important for us is we track our Yahoo signups in a different chart. It's really the same chart, but we track it differently because if we put the Gmail ones in here, they would just disappear, right? From a scale perspective, we have thousands of Yahoo users signing up today. We have 100 Gmail users. We wouldn't notice if all the Gmail users went away. And we want to notice, so we put that on its own chart so that we can notice, oh, there's a problem with Gmail versus there's a problem with Yahoo or something like that. But this is a very similar chart, except, see how the red line follows the blue one? That's a bug. It's broken in this particular little chart. But that's, again, part of what, when you have all these charts, another key part of it is just knowing them and knowing what you're supposed to see and what you're not. And the charts are never going to be perfect. You're always going to have parts like, that number's screwed up. But I know that number's screwed up, so it's okay. I know what it's supposed to be, and I know why it's wrong. And the charts are still really helping me because I can do that. Here's an interesting one where what we're monitoring, each of these lines is, of the people that signed up today for Other Inbox, how many things did we find? And that's kind of a measure of how good of a job we think we're doing. We want to find lots of stuff. And we're trying to do things to make us find more stuff. And so the black line, I don't know exactly what these ones are, so I'm going to assign labels to them, but it might be something like we didn't find anything. We scanned their mailbox and we didn't put anything in any folders. That's not totally our fault. Maybe they didn't have any mail, or there was nothing for us to find. But that's how many we didn't find anything. And this one might be how many had at least 5 things we could organize in it. And the top one of the 1,000, that red line might be 10. Don't go in order. And then maybe the blue one is a big number, like they had at least 20 things, right? So we're doing things to try to match more stuff. And what we're going to look for is, and when I say everybody in the company should be trying to move one of these numbers, is somebody's going to be making changes and trying to watch for one of these numbers to go up, or one of them to go up and one of them to go down. The number of people that have smaller stuff going down, and the number of people that have more matches going up. And that's going to be how they know they're being effective in terms of their accomplishing their job. It also just reveals a lot. And so a lot of times it's kind of slicing things, like breaking things up into cohorts, which is probably something Ash talked about last week, but these are like different cohorts of our types of users. People that have a lot of mail matched, or a small amount of mail matched, or somewhere in the middle, and understanding what that distribution is and potentially over time how that might be changing. Another key thing for us is we send out our daily digest emails. So if you sign up for Other Inbox, every morning you get an email that says, here's all the email that came in the day before that we moved around. And so they go out once a day, so this is very blocky because each day we send out one blast. So there's 1 bar per day here. And some days things don't work right and the digests don't go out. And it's really important that our digests go out. That's like a key part of our service. So we want to watch that really close. And I want to know things didn't go right. In general, this should be going up. That's what we want to be tracking. If you get more and more users coming in, so it should be going up over time. It's a little hard to see over 1 month here. We have another chart we look at that shows it over 3, where it's really much more obvious that it's steadily going up. And then it's a little hard to see here, but there's you get the weekend thing. Like you know what to expect, where weekends are lower and certain ones are bigger. And then you'll see like a holiday, like what happens over 4th of July holiday. And again, you notice those things here, right? And some of it's just being able to correlate it, but knowing your business well enough, either 4th of July is a big weekend for you or it's a dead weekend for you, right? And why? And what to expect from those things. This one, it shows how many people are opening those digests that we send out. So these numbers seem fairly correlated if you look, but it's a different number. It's measuring a different point in the funnel where we can track how many people open the message and look at it. On the retention side, we're tracking deactivations. So the red line here is the total number of people deactivating each day. And for us, this definition of deactivating, these are a little bit older charts. We now track a few other definitions of it. But this definition is they actually turned it off. There's some other definitions that could happen, we can't connect to their account anymore for some technical reason or something, but we could still technically log out. These are people that really turned it off. And you can see that vary per day. It also generally goes with the weekends. That's that red line. And the purple line is an average line drawn through it. And so that's just another easy thing Graphite will do for you, is you can can say like, give me an average line of this one, so smooth it out a little bit, and you can start to see more of the trend of which way every time you go. Then here's something else we did, which never turned out to tell us as much as I was hoping it would, but still, I think are the kind of things that are still really useful to do. Another cohort analysis, where one of these lines is how many users deactivated that are less than 30 days old, and one of them is how many users deactivated that are more than 30 days old. And so what we're really trying to track there is the people we are losing, how many are we losing that like have been customers for a long time, which would be more concerning a little bit, I guess, and how many of them are people that just signed up and are cutting out in the first 30 days, and then as we look, even looking at the first 24 hours is really interesting because most of the people that cut off in the first 30 days cut off in the first 24 hours. And so again, you might do things that try to affect these numbers, or you might make a change to your product that pisses off a whole bunch of your old users, and you notice that more here, where one of those numbers might change, right? So that's why you want to break these things out different ways.
Why was that less useful? Why did that turn out not?
Because they just kind of like they just didn't move a lot. They just kind of stayed. We never were able to move those numbers or affect them. It's like they haven't. Nothing revealing has come out of it at this point. But I think they're interesting to try to do those things. And helps you understand your users better. When people ask me, like, well, who's deactivating? Well, I can tell them. Well, about half of them are more than 30 days old, half of them are less than 30 days old. Here's how it breaks down. That shows that you know your user base. Now will come in handy later as you try to understand it and use that. So retention on this one, this is a version of throwing more than one line on the same chart. And so the blue line is signups and the red line is deactivations. And what we're trying to just show here is that they should be correlated. So at some level, if we're getting a lot more people signing up, we know we're going to have more people deactivating. And that's okay. So you can do a lot of those things throughout the zone. This one is similar to the backup health. It's working the other direction where being at the top is good, but for other inbox, it's how many accounts, email accounts have we synced in the past? 8 out, the numbers are much smaller here, like 30 minutes, 2 hours, 6 hours. These are our timeline we're trying to do. And so the red line is like the smallest one, probably like 30 minutes or something. And you can see there's times where we get almost everybody backed up 30 minutes because things get behind. The blue one's probably like 2 hours. You can see that happens a lot less. And in general, we're trying to keep everybody backed up properly. And then revenue, we don't really make a lot of money, unfortunately. We have more revenue charts now. We're starting to make money off our advertising. We've got that feeding in. But part of revenue, at least part that we could track, was our costs, or at least related to revenue. And so this is coming straight out of Amazon Web Services. And so this is us, using it. We wrote something that goes and pulls the Amazon Web Services API, and then it's pulling what we're using on a daily basis, or even more granular than that, and allowing us to chart that. And you'll see it varies a lot. This is cloud computing, right? So most of the time we're running at, this would be $15K a month worth of servers. But then every night we launch some jobs that use a whole bunch more servers for a little bit of time, and then we turn them all back off. So that's why you see this like big spiky thing going up and down. And then sometimes we realize there are servers left on that we can turn off, so we turn off some more, and blah, blah, blah. But you start to see that pattern. And again, you know what it's supposed to look like. And, I don't even have to know what those things are doing to be able to say, like, something's wrong today. You go ask my developers, like, hey, something's wrong. Why? Because the chart's wrong. Like something's off on the chart. Tell me why this line's down. I don't have to know anything else. Just the line moved in the wrong way. Tell me why. Go figure this out. Go tell me why this line's not moving the right way. And it gives you kind of the sixth sense you can use to see what's happening in the business. I'm almost done here. Then Jason's going to do WP Engine. This is a really interesting one. So this was a test we did that didn't work. So those are some of the best ones. But we were testing. We wanted to put in a thing in our product to say that you could pay for the VIP version, the Pro version, and because it's free for most people. And the free version was going to have no ads. We have banner ads in our thing, and a few other benefits. And so to test this, trying to do the lean startup thing, like Ash was saying, the first thing we did is we put a link underneath the banner ad that said, want to go ad-free version of Other Inbox for $2 a month, or for $1 check. This is $1 a month and $2 a month, meaning $12 a year, $24 a year. Click here, and the green line is how many people ever, because that's why I wrote that 4 times, clicked on that link. And the yellow line is how many people then went to the next page and clicked a second time. Like there was another page that described more what it was and said, do you really want it? They clicked yes. And then it would just say, thanks for the feedback, that's coming soon. Because we didn't build it yet. All we did was put a link on a landing page to see if we built this, would people pay for it? And we actually got a lot of people, over the course of about 2 months. We had 10,000, 12,000 people say, I'll pay. It turns out there was no difference in how many people would say $1 a month versus $2 a month. Like if we changed the price, it didn't matter at all. So we had 10,000 people saying, I'll pay $24 a year, and that's $24,000. And that's not insignificant. We were pretty excited about that. We were thinking this could be another $10,000, $20,000 a month in revenue. And so then we went and we finally made the page so you could pay. Nobody did. We've gotten like 6 people to do it. Which I still don't understand. I can't believe people went through all this other stuff. And they see the link. It says I'm paying $2. It says you're gonna have to pay. They know it. You should know what you're clicking on. And then they click another time on this whole page all about it. But when you actually put the credit card, they have to. So I do think this is a good test. I think this is a good way to test this kind of thing. You should be thinking like this. And not every test is going to work or going to tell you the answer you want. This one didn't.
So when you tested, did you test it on all your customers or a certain segment?
This is a great question. When we first did it, we had the ability to do we're sending out hundreds of thousands of these emails a day, and we probably did 10,000. But what we were really testing there was, are we going to piss anybody off? It was we don't want to upset lots of people, so let's just put it in a couple and see if we get any negative feedback. And then we didn't, so then we blew it out to everybody because it's just much easier to learn more with bigger numbers, right? So as long as there's no downside, there was no reason not to test it with everybody. In fact, it's still in there. Well, and we left it there. There was no reason to take it out, but nobody's paying.
Did you ever do something where you said, give us all your credit card info, and then after they submitted it, say, oh, well, we aren't doing it yet?
Yeah, we did it with backup my tweets when we were trying to get people to pay and seeing what they would pay to back up. And what we did, it was just the credit card form always gave you an error. It just never finished completing.
Just to see if people actually would.
Yeah, I don't necessarily recommend doing that. We kind of went back and forth on it. But you got to figure out what your comfort level is and at what point you don't want to be deceptive to other people or you don't want to make other people upset with you. But you need to learn and you need to try different things. And so you have to figure out where that line is.
And was that where you saw when people had to put the credit card information in, that's what people never did?
Well, ultimately, that's the hardest point. And so part of the lesson from it is it's a big difference to ask somebody to put in a credit card than to come and click, yes, I want something.
What about people who already clicked on it before and said, yeah, I would be interested in it?
Yeah, we had a list of all of them. We blasted all of them and said, hey, who's ready? Come sign up. None of them did.
So there's a couple companies in this class that probably wouldn't be able to be modeled in the way because they don't have 1,000, 2,000 people signing up or something. For example, Magis down there, Zilker Motors. How would you recommend that they model, say, acquisitions and activations in a meaningful way?
Well, obviously, this assumes that the whole cycle is working. So you have to be acquiring customers, doing each of these steps. And so if you're not there yet, you can't do all these things. And so generally what we do is we look for the ones we can do at the very beginning. We try to, we have placeholders. There's we'll literally have a spot that says, the revenue chart goes here, and we just don't have it yet. And we just try to fill those in. And so, for a lot of you can start with website traffic. That's it. You guys all have customer acquisition that way, and you're trying to drive more people there, and you can measure that. And part of the things you might, can you redefine what activation and conversion is? For Zilker Motors, maybe what they should be doing right now is building an email list of people interested in the car. And maybe part of what, this isn't the grand all, I'm not saying this is so important, but maybe the first step of this for them is website traffic leading to conversion of someone giving them an email address and signing up for the email list. That's what they're trying to do. And it's simple, and that's a starting point. And they can track that and monitor that and improve it and then start to incorporate more data into that and other things. For them, it might also be things like, some way of measuring the progress of producing a car or doing other things. When you're doing When you're doing, but they're you're making the first car, and there's only one, then yeah, you probably can't charge it. And it's probably not useful to. But at some point it would be.
I'm also assuming that I guess like these are the things investors. If you're pitching to them, if you have these kinds of numbers,
You look smart.
even if they're not favorable as you'd like them, as favorable as you'd like to, the fact that you can track these is what they like to see. Right?
Oh yeah, they love this stuff. Because it just shows that you're on top of your shit, and you're measuring things, you know what's going on. And yeah, all the numbers might not be right, but they have a feeling like you know what's going on, and you can affect those things, and it's going to impress them a lot.
We had what we call the 8-4-2-1 model, where 8 people come in, 4 would convert in one way, 2 then 1. We measured the difference between those ratios, and if they were off, I guess we knew, do we need to spend more money on marketing materials or sales or training customer service, et cetera? That's kind of the same things you glean out of here, right? Where should you be spending your
I think it
time
could be
and
that.
energy?
Yeah, it depends where you are. I mean, at that point, I think a lot of us are still at the trying to just get somebody to go through all the way through the full cycle. But if you're at the point where you're now okay, the whole thing's working, now I'm tweaking the knobs, then yeah.
So Josh, you're a serial entrepreneur. So do you go in when you're in the ideation stage, thinking about a new startup? Do you actually have these kind of metrics in mind? So it's are you thinking about in the beginning stages? Oh, what am I going to be charting, or what am I going to be tracking? Or does this happen after the fact?
It's not quite that early. I think it's a little after. I mean, for most of the things I know already. It's kind of it's a website, and it's okay, there's the sign-up funnel, there's other pieces. I think I have a basic idea what those are. I wouldn't say it's the first thing I think of. But when we start building something, and anytime we build a new feature, the first question we're asking is how are we going to measure this? How are we going to know if that new feature works? What chart are we going to build that we're going to show that this worked? And so the one example of that was this, right? We're trying to build this feature was letting people pay for the no ads version. How are we going to know if it's working? How do we test it? And then, the other line that never showed up here was people paying, which there weren't any, right? But say you're doing another thing where you're building, we built a new feature for other organizer that's a dashboard, like a real time. It's kind of like the digest you get every day, but it's something you look at real time. So we're building this new feature, and we want to know how many people are going and looking at it, how many people are clicking on the things in it, giving an activity, and then we're going to you want that right from the beginning, because then we're going to do things to try to get people to do that. We're going to promote it to our user base. We're going to put links to it different places, and we want to see what worked, what caused people to go use it. Or be able to say, you know what, nobody's using it. Nobody cares about this thing we built. It's worthless. Let's focus on something else, right?
So what metrics do you track in your development cycle?
We do track metrics in the development cycle. It's a little different. That's not these kinds of things. That's going to be more we're actually, I don't know if we track a lot of metrics for our development cycle. We're generally looking at, we've got a list of priorities, and then together with the developers, we come up with time estimates, approximate ones, or kind of we use a point system for approximate levels of difficulty, and they sign off on what they're committed to get done during a certain sprint. And it's really just a checklist, and that's about a week to 2 week sprint. So then it's really a checklist of did they deliver the things that they needed to do. Some people do a lot of things around how many bugs, how many lines of code, how many. It's not something that I've done all of.
So is that something you would recommend a dashboard for as well? Or is that something more through a task tracker?
I'd say you want to have a dashboard for anything that's important that you want to measure, that you want, because it makes things better. If you have a large development team and that you're trying to manage and focus on that, then yeah, I think it would. If you have 2 or 3 developers, I personally think that's probably not the best use of time. Jason has built a lot of development tools and measurement things. Do you have anything you can add to that?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a small team, you can't tell that somebody's not pulling their weight or that everyone is. That's a problem. And if you can tell that everyone's working really hard, what do you need to measure more for? Just get back to work. You got less to do.
Yeah.
If you got, of course, I've seen teams with thousands of people. Well, you got to roll something up to know what the heck's going on. Okay, fine, but no one in here has that problem.
I'm not a technical guy, so I'm not sure, but if you come up with a new metric, is there a way to get this stuff retrospectively? Or is it all from
Usually
where
not.
it's discussed?
I mean, usually not. It could be, but usually not. Usually you have to think ahead of time to store this stuff. And a lot of lean startup people will encourage you to log lots of things because you figure out later that you want to go look at them. But you have to balance that with just being practical.
So Mixpanel would do this, right?
I'm not. I haven't used that one, but I believe that's another. Yeah, I think Mixpanel is another service that just you can push data to it and it'll show it different ways. Okay, so that was other inbox. We're gonna do one more example with Jason, and then we'll go into Jason's talk, which is a totally different topic. So,
Sure. Okay. This is my company, WordPress Engine. We're a WordPress hosting company, so blog hosting. Just to give you context on what this is, and all these charts are old, so just imagine that I'm like 3 or 4 times more awesome than whatever these numbers are. So our activation, we actually have all of these 5 higher metrics worked out pretty well, since it's an operating business and even got profitable twice. I say twice because you get profitable, then you go hire people, and then you get profitable, and so forth. In other words, for the right reasons. So our activation, like Josh says, a lot of people start with website traffic. We don't. I probably look at the website traffic every week or 2. And the reason is that the website traffic does all kinds of stuff. It doesn't appear to be correlated with anything interesting, like people signing up for the service. It's just lots of noise. And so if you were trying to do a lot of specific marketing efforts, which we now are, then we are interested in how well each one of those marketing efforts is converting. And that would be a separate chart that you look at. But even so, not every day. I think one of the important things for the dashboard is what Josh said, which is every morning he gets up and looks at them. Well, Josh has too much stuff to do, just like you guys. We don't have time to look at a lot of charts that aren't really important every single day. And that's a good filter to know whether you should bother to put the chart up. Would you really act on it every day? So here's ours that for activation that is something we act on every day. I'll show you why. And this is somebody who not only comes to the website and not only fills out the form, they put in the credit card, and that works too. And they are an actual customer who has given us a credit card. We don't charge them for 15 days, so they can cancel without getting paid, but we have the card, so they're going to get charged for 15 days unless they cancel, right? That's a really, really tough barrier to get in here. Anyway, so this is what that looks like. This is a stack. So the top line is the number of people actually doing it. Not very many, as you can see. And when the numbers are very small like this, which I think a lot of you will be, they're spiky. Like, this thing looks like a big disaster. It's like not even a line because it's all over the place. That's normal when the numbers are small. So there's no trend line. There's no point to a trend line. It's just this, which is okay. It's colored because we have some things that are, or we're not using that word anymore, right? I'm sorry. It's got colors because sometimes we have promotions. We want to see those separately. And Widget Lab is a partner we have. We'd like to see how much comes from the partner, right? But here's why this is important to see every day if you know it's spiky. See that? I mean, it's spiky, but it's not zeros a lot. So when it was 0 for the second time, we started getting nervous, and we discovered that our sign-up form was broken. You're going to sign up for your credit card, you can't. We literally broke the whole business. Now, if these numbers, if we had more people
the next day, a
coming
whole
up-
bunch more people signed up.
Yeah, that's right. They were like, please come back. And some did, right? That's a pretty important thing to have happen, that all the business disappears. That's probably a good thing to put on the chart. And if we had more people every day signing up, we would know much faster. We would probably know in an hour. Or another inbox or something breaks, they would literally know it in minutes. If something's wrong. Minutes, which is awesome. We're not, at this point, we're not that awesome. Here is... This blue line is a trailing 2-week average of the previous chart. Okay, signups. So it is useful, and you can see that it's kind of dipped. That's because we got some good press, and we were not doing any marketing at all. So it kind of went away, and there's our kind of steady state if we don't do marketing, but people just telling each other and so forth. Then we decided to start doing some marketing. And it worked a little bit, not great, because we're spending a lot of money. That's not a lot of stuff, but we can at least see those kinds of things. And the green line is the net new customers, meaning new people minus whoever canceled. So we hope that those are close. But then sometimes, oh no, boo, yikes. Now, I mean, talk about important. People start leaving in droves. Think that's important, like every single day, right? And then since it's a 2-week average, after 2 weeks it came back because it was a spike. And you can see it's still pretty close and so on. Now, it turns out that this wasn't a big problem with us, although later I'll show you something that was a big problem with us. But this was actually, we found that a lot of people hadn't paid in months and months and months. And finally laid down the law and said, if you don't pay us within 30 days, it's over. And a lot of them did not pay because they didn't want it. That's why they hadn't paid. And so we canceled a bunch of people. So this is actually a false thing. But like Josh says, as long as you know that, that's okay. You don't want to spend too much time trying to manipulate all that in your graphs. Because again,
Yeah, you don't have to try to make the chart right. You just need to know. That's why
what's
that's
going
it.
Now, this cancellation rate is super important for us. Retention is what they would call it. Really important to us. So we measure it in a few different ways, like Josh was talking about, but it's super important for us. This top line is the short-term cancel rate, meaning people who are fewer than 3 months old, how many of them per month cancel as a percentage? So, like a lot, 20% per month. Yikes! Add that up. Like half the people are gone in 3 months, right? Oops. And then the red line is between 6 and 12 months. That's looking good. And the green line is even longer than that, also looking really good. It's super, 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 super important that these two numbers stay low. Because if these don't, what does it mean? What do you think it means? If someone who's a year old cancels, it means what? You don't want it, but they had wanted it for a year. So what does that mean? What?
You piss them off.
We pissed them off. The service sucks. Something changed that's really, really important. Again, fundamental thing to the business. That's why it's on the chart. Now, this is pretty important. This is way too high, right? Not cool. If 50% are leaving after a few months, right? This is probably better. In fact, I've been told by a lot of people that having that at 5% per month is actually really good. Maybe that's because it's an expensive product, so just signing up at all, you're probably a little more engaged and interested than something that's free or something that's really cheap where you might impulse buy it. Nobody impulse buys us because we start at $50 a month. And you got to move your blog to us, which is annoying. So it's a pretty big commitment, so I hope that's low. Again, not that. So as you'll see later, we've had big spikes in this that have absolutely been correlated with stuff, and I'll show you that later, but that's our retention. In revenue, see now this isn't a period where we were not profitable because the blue line is expenses.
We were.
Oh yeah, we were right there. And then we hired, 2 people like that. There we are hiring 2 people. And this little blip is we brought a couple servers online, right? And there's another little blip. I think we had 1 server to a cluster somewhere. And the revenue kind of goes up with customers. Sometimes we get a really big customer, so we'll go up a bit. That's really important to us. And this is total revenue across the whole company, salaries and expenses and everything. For us, it's also important to know what our gross profit is. So that means revenue minus just the variable stuff, the stuff that normally will grow and shrink with number of customers, like how many servers we have, what we're paying for bandwidth, Amazon services, things where if we double the number of users, we would expect it to double. We wouldn't expect anything better than that. Versus things like salaries and office space, which of course they can go up, but they don't vary just by number of customers. That's under our control. So gross profit is this same revenue, but minus just the variable stuff. And the ratio of that, the gross profit margin, I don't think is in here. But that's another number we look at really closely. And the reason is that as long as that ratio stays good, then as long as we have a lot more customers, we definitely have a profitable, healthy business. For sure. Like all we need to do, it's the hardest part, but all we need to do is get a lot more people, and we know it's going to be a profitable company. But if that starts shrinking, if we start getting less efficient at how much it costs us to serve customers, that's absolutely critical. Again, it's a deal-breaking thing. If that shrinks too far, there's no way we'll overcome the overhead, because of course we do still have to hire more tech support and everybody, right, as it grows. If that thing shrinks below probably 40%, it's not a business. It's not going to be a profitable business. Not even if we multiply the number of customers by 10, then we'd just be losing more money, right? So it's super, super critical that we do that. In fact, it dropped on purpose because we decided to shift data centers. So we had 2 data centers for a while, and then we got rid of one and we went back to good. Again, we knew that, but super important for us. This is a fun chart. It's the amount of time you have left before you run out of money, and it's all over. It's pretty important. It's also really nice to know exactly what that date is. What I like to do is calculate a day, like a specific day. So here's what you do. You take your trailing 30-day expenses, trailing 30-day revenue, and it's usually a loss, right? And you take how much money you have in the bank. By the money in the bank, by the loss. That's how many months you have left. And if you use Excel or Google Docs or something, you can convert that into literally a date. Like the first time I did this was like 18 months ago. The date was February 13th, 2011, we're dead. At current rate and speed, we dead. And that's crystallized. Now, it's not really February 13th, right? That's obviously artificial precision. That's not true. But it does crystallize like, oh yeah, we should probably, do something about that. It really helps them to focus you. And of course, you want to see that moving. So what this is how many months you have left until you run out of money. And of course, what you want to see is that the date's running away from you. And since this is how many months remaining, 10 months remaining, even if it's flat, that's good. I'm pushing my dead date out. And 10 months is a lot of time. Well, that's good too. That means we have time to experiment, try stuff, and so on. And then we started getting profitable. Well, as you get profitable, you have as much time as you want, right? Because you're making money, not spending it. And then, we're coming back down. So you can see that in the chart. So this takes a little bit more math, I suppose, to compute. But I find it's really, really valuable to see how well you're doing.
Yeah, just real quickly, I think, I'm not just saying this because Jason's here. I've seen other people looked at it and said the same things. These are some of the best charts I've ever seen for business, in that they're complete and they're actually being fed in real time from all these other data sources. Partly that comes from having a CEO that can program. But all the revenue and the bank accounts and everything else is flowing into this in real time. So like having a chart that actually shows you for real how much time until you run out of money is like super cool and really valuable to an early stage startup. And most companies don't have that kind of visibility and aren't able to track all these kinds of things. So it took a significant investment. Jason spent a lot of time going and building all this stuff. Now that he's got it built, it's super cool, and he can use it all the time. He probably doesn't have to do nearly as much to update it. But this is hard. Most people don't do this and can't get this level of detail.
So when can I sell that as a product?
Yeah, can we sell?
We talked about that a lot.
So this is sort of in line with that gross profit margin stuff I was just referring to. This divides a total amount of revenue by the number of customers. So this is literally we charge, I should say, about $64 per customer, and it's it kind of wiggles a little, not a lot actually. It's just kind of the same. That's on a cash basis. So the green line is accrual because we don't collect the money as fast as we charge. The accrual is actually more relevant to whether the business is doing well or not, because this is more like collections and if credit cards are working, which is not as, it's important in terms of when the bank actually runs out of money. It's not important as an indication of the health of the whole business, because that lag is an accounting thing that isn't important in terms of the large scale health of the business. And then the same thing with our costs, it averages about $30. Remember I said we brought in another data center without, and we had two, so here it is coming up, and oh no, but we know that's why we did that. That's clusters number 4 and 5. And I know that, so I'm comfortable that's going to come back down, which it has now. Turns out this is not useful. And the reason it's not useful is some of our customers pay $50 a month. Remember, that's the basis. And this is 64. And some of them pay $5,000 a month. That's really, really different. To lump them all together to make an average is sort of useless. Because all kinds of things can change this. How many of each type of customer? Am I getting some from some category to pay more? There's all kinds of things that go into the number, and when there's that many things that go into the number's actually not that helpful, right? Because I don't really know, like, this wiggle, I have no idea why there's all these forces in dividing, and the fact that I don't know why, and I don't even know where to go with that, means it's useless. It means I should stop looking at it, because it's not actionable anymore. It's just a number that I computed. So what? So now we have these same charts, but it's broken down by these types of customers, and now I can watch things like, so of the $50 a month customers, how's our profit margins and so forth. And so, for example, we discovered that the really expensive customers, we make good money. And the really cheap people, we make good money. But there's this range from like $200 to $600 per month where we actively lose money. Like every month we lose money in that category. We're just not charging enough for them. The way our pricing model works, we lose money. See that here? No, that's why this is useless, right? Okay. All right, there's my little numbers.
So do you have some questions for Jason?
Could you tell us a little bit just about the business itself?
Sure. So WordPress is the most popular blogging software on earth. It's got about 50 million users. And so there's a lot of options for where you can host and a lot of types of people who do it. So we decided to go after a specific group of people who are smaller than the huge guys like CNN.com or TechCrunch. We don't look at them. And almost all the WordPress users are in this like, I want free or GoDaddy for $7 a month. We're not interested in them either. We're interested in the remainder, the people who are willing to spend some money on their blog because it makes them money or it's important to them. But they're too small to be spending the 10 grand a month up that the big guys are. And those other things are not are too core for them in terms of the speed and the scalability and how secure they are. If tech support knows anything about WordPress, they suck. Obviously, it's $7 a month. It has to suck, right? There's no choice. So there's a segment who's willing to pay some money for good service, and that's what we do. And so you go to the website, and there's some information. It's actually not that good of a website, to be honest. And we make you pay up front, so that's we get a good quality on the other end of that, and then sacrifice some quantity for that too. And people, it's month to month. You can cancel anytime you want. And so cancellation rate's quite real. That's an interesting thing. If you do a contract thing, you won't find out for a year if they cancel. You need other numbers to find out if they're really active and they look like they're going to cancel one. But we find out right away that they've pissed us off. Yeah.
What metrics do you use to decide when to add more computing power?
That's a good question. We have similar things. They're just not the business metrics. And we have other charts. And so we look at things like, on a per server basis, we can use things like average load. But since all of our stuff comes in clusters and all the load is balanced, usually if one thing's out of balance, it's just a problem with that one server, not something systemic. So we do look at that from like an IT point of view, but it doesn't drive a lot of decisions. Instead, we aggregate all this stuff on the whole cluster. And we have now really just a feeling of like, when it gets to be around this many million hits per day, that's about what a cluster can handle. But even then it varies. Like we have one customer who has their own cluster and they have their own sort of weird behavior because they're huge. And then we have another cluster full of little guys and they have different behavior from them. So even then we have to sort of use our judgment. But we look at things like how many what we call front-end hits, which are cached and very fast. And separately how many back-end, which means they hit the database and other things that are much more expensive for us to run and break, and are usually the first things to break as well. And we want to make sure those are looking, those are above thresholds that we just sort of are feeling out, like how much we're willing to take, right? Now that we've raised some money, we have a luxury that we can afford to spend more money than we have to. So rather than push the limit of each cluster, we can say like, don't push the limit, just build another one. It's not that expensive. And keep going, and it's better to have a good service and people not canceling. And later, anytime you want, later you can go back and try to wring another 10% of performance, and you should, right? Like it's way more important for us to just keep moving, get more people in the door, keep them happy than to wring a little bit more. Take the cost from $30 a customer to 27. Like that doesn't really change the business in any significant way for us because our market is already okay. And so, like figuring out what to do with that other segment, that's way more important. So we'll just build up another cluster and keep going. So we don't worry about it too much.
How long have you been in business or been working in this space?
Well, this business is about 18 months old.
Okay.
And that data, I don't know, they came from different time periods. So, yeah.
Are you looking into maybe other content management system?
We get asked that a lot, and so we're focused on WordPress. It's by far the biggest market anyway, and by focusing, we can be really good at it. But sort of the obvious thing to do is something like a Drupal, because that's the same basic technology stack, so a lot of our stuff would come over. But then again, all of our WordPress-specific knowledge wouldn't. And so you'd want to have some Drupal people, and is that market willing to spend what the WordPress market is? Because it's smaller. There may not be enough people. Then there's Drupal Gardens that just appeared, and maybe they're going to take, it's just a whole nother thing, and that's distracting because we still need to do better at building our current business. But that's exactly the kind of thing you might do over time when this is going really well and everything is really well understood and we've de-risked a lot of stuff and it's a machine now, we just know what to do. Then you can start asking like, so now we have kind of the leeway now that we've really solidified this business to look at similar ones where we could like jump over and do a good job because we learned all this.
How big is your company?
Right now we have almost 6 people. The 6th one starts in the 31st.
And they're paying mostly just for customer service related to this law?
No, the
drive
host,
traffic or things and the host.
Yeah, hosting and support. We don't drive any traffic, we don't do ads. all things that have been suggested that we have like add-on services to do that. The thing is, there's not really anything we bring to bear for that. If we made an ad network, so what? Why would we have a better ad network? Nothing. It's just ads.
So you're the managed host for about managed stuff.
Like a Roku for WordPress, that kind of thing.
So you said that your website sucks, and that reminded me of
That what sucks?
that your website sucks. Like you said that.
Well,
right?
it could be a lot better.
Right.
I
Okay,
know.
so-
How do I know that?
Well, what I'm getting at
So I
is
can tell you I have data.
yeah, so you have data.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to know
I
that.
have
But
some data, yeah.
it reminds me of like one blog post you did about like how you did a big redesign.
Yeah, that's
and it's
right.
all cool and fancy.
That's right.
And then you said it sucks, but like it didn't
didn't
affect
do anything.
conversion. And
That's right.
you know why or like
No. No, I mean, fundamentally, we don't know why that had no effect. I mean, you have to assume because those kind of design changes, for whatever reason, don't make the difference in whether people are going to sign up. It's something else. Maybe it's whether they trust us or whatever other stuff we're saying and the landing pages. I mean, there could be a million things, but apparently just changing the style and layout and so on is not, or at least that particular change. Maybe there's another one that would. But not a particular one. They were not sensitive to that. But since then, we've done these studies where we have 50 people go to the website and ask questions like, "What do you think this website is about? What kinds of people do you think this is for? What are some other thoughts you had?" Like these kind of like open questions, just to try to see like what do people think when they come to the damn website. And we've learned a lot of interesting things. Like it's not up here, but they'll say like everyone looks at the engine. They go like, "I looked at the engine and then I forgot to read it." That's interesting, right? Doesn't mean anything, people haven't seen it. But anyway, we got some interesting feedback. And I know that there's a lot of weird elements that are distracting people or confusing people. I also know that it turns off women. There's a lot of people just said this is a very masculine site, blah, 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 blah. And, it's just kind of got that look, and I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And so that's probably a big deal. So you didn't even consider something like that, right? When you're building it, it's like, oh, okay. We're trying to do other things now, by the way.
So one more, and we'll jump into this next topic.
So when you were coming up with the idea, how did you think that okay, there's enough customers for me to actually invest time in this? Like, did you do like?
I didn't have any customers first before I decided to invest the time. Here's what I did. It started because I needed the service, and every time I asked someone if they knew of one, they said, "I don't know, but tell me if you have one." So I thought that's interesting. So then I wrote down some theories. I literally wrote down what I thought was true about this. This kind of company doesn't exist. People are willing to spend, at the time my theory was, $50 a month if it has speed, scalability, security, those particular things. Also, people really care about staging area, something WordPress doesn't have. They would pay for that. I thought that SSL was really important, and so forth. I had like all these theories about what people would do and what kinds of people would pay and so forth. Then I went out and did interviews. I literally got people, took them out to lunch, or did it on the phone, and I did it for 50 hours. And that kind of doesn't sound like a lot. You're like, okay, that's like a little over a week of full time. When you're scheduled, I mean, that's on the phone, on all the scheduling stuff. It is you're beat to death, and it's like a month or two. It's a lot, and most of the time they're telling you you're wrong, so it's really hard, right? So at the end of it, about a third of my theories were pretty much right. A third of them were dead wrong, and a third of the things I learned were just new things that appeared as I was talking to them. But at the end of it, this is how you know you've gotten to the end of doing this. I got to the point where if I asked like one or two things at the top to sort of put this person in a box or two, I could tell you cold what they were going to say the rest of the questions. I could just say like they're going to say no, yes, yes, no, $40, right? And so when you get where it's just like boring, you're like, okay, I have, let's just say, as much of a handle on this as I'm going to doing this stuff. That's when I wrote the first line of code, started talking to other people to come on board, got a name for the company, didn't have that yet. I mean, there's no PowerPoints, no mock-ups, no anything. It was just talking about WordPress and some thoughts that I had. And I didn't even tell them what my theories were. That was just sort of my working thing that I was going to use to move the conversation. I wasn't even going to tell them that was my theory, because that might make them agree, because they think they want me to agree or something like that, right? So that is what I did. And to kind of show you that it works, I mean, this is one proof that it works, is that it's working now. I did the same thing with another idea I had about 4 months earlier, and it didn't work out at all. Complete disaster. So the same technique, said, no, that's not good. And then here it did work. So it did differentiate. Now that's not to say the other business would have necessarily been bad or something, but it doesn't always come back and say yes, right?
Great. Okay, let's